up everyone, welcome back to another lazy tutorial for lazy people on how to do Gunpla the lazy way. So basically in the review of the Rex here, I mentioned that the arms are way too weak. Basically when it's fully extended, even when it's not, it's still too heavy for these arms to hold. I guess the Gundam frame wasn't really designed with this in mind when they made the first Barbatos, but I think all this here is new, but it's still too weak to hold it up. This thing is pretty big and pretty heavy, and I guess the low of the lever just means the standard Iron-Blooded Orphans 1/100 joints just don't cut it. They just don't cut it at all. So I'm just going to show you really quickly how you can deal with this. Now here we go. So what you're going to need is a nippers, masking tape, needle nose pliers, acrylic clear paint, wire, plastic cement, a hobby knife, Gundam markers, paint, Q-tips, and anime figure grade clay.
But I don't have all that shit.
Now I'm just taking the piss, you don't need that. This is a lazy tutorial. You don't need really anything much at all. Basically, this guy just can't hold up the stuff because the joints are too loose. Specific ones like here, not so much here. The elbow a little bit because I guess the low of the lever again. It's just a long lever here to the fulcrum, so it's just a losing combination right there. The wrist again is weak too, that's not the right wrist. Or manipulator should I say, that's the one you want right there. But this one is significantly weaker than the other one. So basically if it's too loose, that just means it isn't fitting tight enough, so all you have to do is tighten up that joint by taking the business end here and just making it thicker. And basically there's so many things you can use just to do that. As far as mecha model kits go, Gunpla is by far the best, but that doesn't mean they're all created equal. Some of them, like the Delta Plus here, the Master Grade Delta Plus, is a bit of a wreck in a lot of its joints. Mainly because of its transformation, but besides that, a lot of it is a bit of a wreck as well. The same goes for one of my favorite Master Grades, and that right here is the Jinx. I was so disappointed when I put this together that it basically would keep just falling over and flopping over and whatnot, so what I did was I just painted the joints. As you can see, there's black paint on there. Whoa! Might be a little hard to see there, but there's just some black paint on there. Same goes for this joint here. I just got some black paint I had handy at the time, and I just painted it black. But basically anything that will like paint on like paint or something like that, or a lacquer, should do fine as long as it's hard wearing. So basically it's pretty simple. I'm just going to show you really quickly on the Barbatos, make him capable of wielding his mace, and I'll show you a couple of things you can use and you'll get the idea of, you know, what will work and what won't. Okay, so first thing you need to figure out which joint is responsible for being too weak. If you haven't built it already, that's even better. You can do all this before putting it together and not have to deal with the loose aspects of the kit. So what you can do there is look up a review online, like a written one or a video one. I've got one or two over here you can find, one or two, and find out if any of the joints are loose. If they are, you might as well give them all a bit of a kind of a coating. If not, then you're grand. If you're going to paint a figure, then that doesn't matter at all. All the joints are going to be super tight anyway. So straight away you can feel that that one right there is the main offender. Nothing else in the shoulder really feels all that bad, so you can just pump out the arms, and nothing in the body should be too much of a problem. This one right here doesn't feel too bad, but then again, you don't want to fix all the joints you think are a problem, then put it all together and find out that that one is a bit of an issue. So you might as well go for everything. This one right here is loose anyway. This has been an underlying problem with the Gundam frame since the original 1/100 Barbatos. Basically what that is it's relying on this armor here to hold it in place. So if I pop this out, you can see that's two separate sections. If I bend that, it's already kind of pulling this apart. I'm not really going to go into that in the tutorial because that's kind of a little bit different, but what you want to do with that, I'll just mention in passing, is you're going to take that part apart. So what you're going to do is get your plastic cement, if you have it that is. Again, this isn't a major part of this tutorial. It's just a bit of a side tip. Nothing else will really work, like an epoxy glue or just a super glue won't really hold. What you want to do is fuse the pieces together. So you take that apart, just put it on either side, stick them together, put them in a vise or just plain hold them with your hands until they're stuck, and that should deal with that. But because we're doing this the lazy way, we're just going to make this part a little bit thicker, which in the long run might make this a little bit worse. Again, if you're not lazy, I'd recommend just gluing this section, but if you are, let's just make this thicker and jam it in. This joint right here is definitely too loose for how long this arm is, so that's going to have to be tightened up, and definitely this one too. So that's the main three joints that are the problem here. This one in the wrist, this one in the elbow, and this one up here. This one to a lesser extent as well, this kind of rotating part, but mainly this one, and this one. So I'm going to treat them all differently with three different things, just so you can see what kind of works. So basically what you can use, I showed this already, is just some top coat. This right here is just clear acrylic paint. You can use that, you may not have it, but you can use this. If you got cans of top coat, that can work too. You could just spray the joint, but then you might get it on everything. Just spray it into the cap or something and paint it onto the joint, that'll be fine. Next is any kind of paint, really. Just paint the joint and that'll work as well, but the simplest thing, it might be what most people would have or have easy access to, is literally just nail varnish. Like this one right here is a clear nail varnish. It doesn't look like it, it's blue. but it is clear. It's colorless too, that's what I mean, colorless clear. Nothing is really as hard wearing as nail varnish is. It does a really good job, so you just paint that on there. So I'll start right off the bat with this. Seeing as we're going to be doing inside this joint as well, might as well pull that all apart, and then what you want to do is just hit that ball right there with the nail varnish. Just coat it all the way around. Like, this joint already fits enough already, it's just a little bit loose, so you don't need that thick of a coating. So you just coat it like that, and then if you have anything at all to like kind of prop it against, or just prop it up on so it doesn't stick to anything, you can. I'm just gonna put it on this file like that, and then just let it dry out. Of course, it goes without saying, if that isn't tight enough already, you can give it a second coat. If you're a little bit paranoid, you can give it a second coat anyway, but let's move that out of the way. Same goes for this part as well, because that part might be loose. I didn't find it too loose, but then again, it probably will be. So I'm gonna use the nail varnish on that again. You just get the male section of the peg and just coat that like so. Try to keep it somewhat uniform, but then again, you don't need to be too precious with it. There we go. As for this section here of the joint, I don't feel you need to do anything with that, so that can just be set aside. Okay, so now onto this joint here, just pop that open again. People are always giving out to me in videos for not trimming my nails, but having long nails is extremely handy when you're building Gundams all the time. Also, I've got incredibly hard nails, so they're really annoying to cut. Really hard to cut. Okay, so again, you just need to identify the part that's slipping on you. This time, it's not this part. That just holds that into this. What's slipping is this thicker part here that connects into that. So basically, you're going to coat that again. So whatever you have to coat it with that. This time, I'm going to go with the colorless clear acrylic paint. I also just realized I don't have a brush with me. Okay, I went and got a brush. So anyway, just paint that around the outside there. Just get it all the way around the outside. A nice, reasonably, I guess, not quite thin, not quite thick coat. Just enough to make sure that it sits in the joint a little bit snugger than it used to. And that's that for that one. Okay, so last up then is this one. So this is the wrist. In here is a poly cap. So gluing this won't really make much of a difference because it's sitting into the poly cap, not directly into the plastic. When you're coating a joint like this, you don't want to do the poly cap because that's just going to flake off and fall off. You want to do this section here, the part that sticks into the poly cap. So this time I'm going to use paint. Basically now you can see what I'm getting at. You basically want something you can paint on, will dry, and make it that little bit thicker. It is that fraction of a millimeter extra on here that's going to make the difference between it sagging right out of that pose and it holding the pose pretty much indefinitely. So as long as you get something that will make it that little bit thicker, that's good. What I have here is a dark gray, and that is not mixed. Let's mix that real quick. I've nothing to mix it with, so I'll just use one of these. So here we go. As you can see, I'm using a dark gray, something that's kind of similar to the color. It doesn't really matter. The part you're going to be painting is going to be stuck into the joints. If you painted silver or white or green or anything. As you can see, I'm using a fairly similar color. This is a dark gray, not quite as dark as the inner frame, but that doesn't really matter. The ball that you are about to paint, you'll never see it. But if you do use a fluorescent pink or something like that, I guess a part could peek out when it's like at a super extended pose, so it's good to go with something similar or something clear. Okay, that'll do. So not everyone has a stock of paint and top coat and stuff like that, so that's why I mentioned the clear nail varnish. I find that works better than most things. It's extremely hard wearing, and for most people it's just a simple thing to get. If you have any female relatives or a wife or anything like that, you'll just be able to grab it and use it. Okay, so there you go. Don't be too precious with it, you're never going to see it. But anyway, that is it for this arm. I'm going to do the other arm off camera, and then when it's all dry, I'm going to stick it back together. Okay, so I'm back about a day later, and I had to do this joint here as well as this one a second time, and this one in here as well. Once I tightened up the primary offenders, the kind of secondarily weak joints popped up as well. Towards the end, what I started relying on most is the paint. I think it's because it's a little bit more grittier, the finish is a little bit rougher. It holds the joints a lot better than, say, the nail varnish, and definitely a lot better than the clear acrylic paint. This one right here, this colorless clear, doesn't work too well at all. Okay, so here we go. Let's attach that on there, and that is good and tight, as you can see. Also, the waist now isn't really strong enough to hold this up. So all in all, this weapon design just doesn't work at this scale. I guess maybe if it was a master grade, it might be able to hold something of this size up. But one of these full mechanics kits, not at all. Let's see if it can hold it at full extension without dropping it. So there we go. Not really. And that is after tightening up all those joints. So I suppose that is it for that quick kind of tutorial. Basically, the laziest way to fix a situation like this is by using paint. Paint the joints and they'll definitely hold a lot tighter than they did before. This mace right here is an absolute exception. So in most cases this will work. Painting the joints with paint or something like that for me in the past has always worked. This is the first time. This is an extreme case. Those incredibly long limbs and that massive mace. Just basic physics is this model kit's enemy. Again, if this was a master grade, it may be able to hold it up. If you do this to both arms, it will definitely be able to hold it up with both arms. It can hold it up with one arm in some poses like this one right here, but for most cases, this mace is a bit of a lost cause. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see more lazy tutorials on ways to do things, let me know what you'd like to see. And of course, make sure to come back for more Gunpla reviews, and I'll see you next time.